The California National Primate Research Center is part of the National Primate Research Centers program and is dedicated to improving human and animal health. My name is Carlos Villatoro, and this is Monkey Talk, the official podcast of the California National Primate Research Center at UC Davis. Today, my guest on Monkey Talk is Dr. John Morrison, the director of CNPRC. Dr. Morrison is also editor-in-chief of brainfacts.org, a website that's dedicated to neuroscience. Welcome, Dr. Morrison.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos.
John, you recently returned from the National Institute of Health's workshop on ensuring continued responsible research with non-human primates. Can you tell us a little bit about the workshop?
Yeah. So it was, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago now. I was one of the invited participants. It was designed to highlight the successful research on non-human primates in the morning. So we had four really nice scientific talks in the morning, and then highlight the regulatory oversight of non-human primate research and what we do in terms of the welfare of the animals in the afternoon, where four people spoke as well. And there was a lot of time set aside for discussion, and many of us that were invited as discussants. So we were able to go into some depth about the research that's being done and that has been done on the non-human primates, and also the well-being of those of captive primates at places like the Primate Center and universities and research institutes. I think it was very successful. I think we were able to see some of the remarkable research that's been going on, and also see that there's been a lot of progress over the last 20 or 30 years in making sure that these animals are as comfortable as they can be. And also the regulatory oversight has increased over the last couple of decades, and I think it's been successful.
And what kind of person attended this workshop?
So there were veterinarians there were bioethicists, there were some bioethicists. There were scientists like myself, neuroscientists, infectious disease specialists, and cardiac scientists, the kinds of scientists that tend to work on monkeys, on the monkey model. There were people from NIH. I don't think there were any people from industry there. So I would say mostly veterinarians, a couple bioethicists, and researchers.
And was there any kind of a consensus reached at the workshop? Was there a main point that was established during the workshop?
I took away three main messages from it, and I'm sure that people with a different viewpoint from my own might have taken away different messages. But for me, it became very clear as the day went on that three things have emerged at this point in non-human primate research. One is that, if anything, we should be doing more non-human primate research, not less, because of the extraordinary power of this animal model to foster translational accomplishments and have real impact on disease. Some of the examples that were used in the talks were really compelling. The use of deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's disease is now been done in tens of thousands of people, and the entire basis of that approach is from basic research on the motor system in the non-human primate. There was another talk that highlighted the incredible success with treatment of AIDS that comes from the monkey research.
Oh, that's huge.
It's gigantic.
It's huge, absolutely.
And and also the promise of this approach for Zika was highlighted. So I think, if anything, we need to do more of this kind of research. The other thing that emerged was that we really have made great progress on the well-being of captive primates. They are clearly, we still have ways to go, but there's a commitment to that at places like here, the California National Primate Research Center, and across the country. There's a commitment to doing this research in the best possible way and making the animals as comfortable as possible. And the third thing that emerged, at least for me, is the incredible role that the National Primate Research Centers have to play. Person after person made the point that they would never have been able to do the research that they've now launched if they weren't associated with a primate center. So I was very proud of how the primate centers were highlighted without me having to say anything. It was really being said by the people that had benefited from being involved with the primate center.
Now, you touched a little bit about some of the benefits of non-human primate research. Right now there are, over 100 studies happening at any given moment here at the Primate Research Center in UC Davis. What do you see as, I guess what I want to ask you is, what do you see as some of the, what is the biggest benefit of non-human primate research?
Well, there's a couple. One is we are, the monkeys are close to humans anatomically, physiologically, pharmacologically, developmentally. Their brains are very similar to our own in many ways. Mm-hmm. So they are a uniquely powerful model for human conditions, for human health and human disease. We just mentioned a couple of examples of that with AIDS research, with the research that led to the treatment for Parkinson's disease, cardiac research. There's the cardiac system in a monkey is very, very similar to human. Nervous system, I mentioned, the immune system. So we get more faithful models in the monkey mm-hmm. of diseases than we can get in a rodent model. The other area that has turned out to be incredibly important is when you have a system, like let's take the visual system, that is so similar in monkeys and humans. I mean, their visual system is essentially identical to ours. Mm-hmm. And this is not true of, for instance, the rodent model. So it's very hard to get detailed information on the visual system from the rodent that can be directly applied to human conditions, whereas from the monkey, it's directly parallel. The other thing is that there's naturally occurring disorders in humans that also occur in monkeys.
Like what, for example?
Like cataracts, like left ventricular hypertrophy, which is a cardiac disorder that leads to death. It's essentially identical in monkeys and humans. Mm-hmm. Type 2 diabetes. Monkeys, as they age, will naturally get type 2 diabetes, just like humans. Asthma. We've studied asthma here, and we have a fantastic monkey model of asthma. Mm-hmm. So these are areas that you can take advantage of where you've really got a very similar occurrence and very similar vulnerability in the monkey that you have in human. You don't have to do an experimental manipulation. You just have to study the genetics and the environmental influences on that disease and figure out the mechanism of the disease.
So for studying human disease using an animal model, but there's really no better animal model than a primate for studying diseases in humans that is, I guess, translational.
Yes, particularly if it's a disease that's affecting a system that is very well developed in the monkey. Like I mentioned, the visual system, the motor system, the monkey's motor system, very similar to ours. Female endocrinology. Monkeys go through menopause just like humans. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's and that, of course, makes the model that much stronger mm-hmm. to study what happens with menopause.
You know, there are a lot of people out there who say, they say that non-human primates in medical research, they say that it's unnecessary.
Right.
They say that computer models or perhaps humans can be used to develop cures for diseases like Zika. I guess what is your response to that?
Well, I disagree. You can't do invasive work on humans, and of course you shouldn't. You should never do invasive work on humans.
Right.
That is completely unethical. And so your work on humans is by definition observational and quite complicated. It's essential to do human studies of disease and human trials and human studies of the organization of the nervous system, especially. Mm-hmm. But you can. It's by definition non-invasive and observational. So there's things that you simply can't do there that you can do in the monkey. The computer models. I'm not quite sure where this came from originally, but I do hear it. If you could model the complex biology that's being affected by a disease and model the complex mechanisms of that disease in a computer, you would understand it so far beyond our current understanding of any biological system or any disease. I mean, I hope we get there someday where we can prod and poke a computer model and figure out how a drug's going to impact that disease, but we're not there.
Maybe somebody will make an app for that someday.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the average person doesn't know much about the type of research that we do here at CNPRC, which is the acronym that we use for California National Primate Research Center. What do you see as the top 3 things that the public should be aware of?
Well, we've mentioned some of them, the unique power of this model for disease. We're now trying to develop monkey models of Alzheimer's disease. If we get a true monkey model of Alzheimer's disease, that's a game changer, because the mouse models have not been very effective in predicting interventions for humans. I think a monkey model would be.
This is such a devastating disease.
It's horrible. It's horrible for the family. It's horrible for the caregivers. A person can have Alzheimer's disease for 10 years where they no longer recognize their family members. Yeah. That's what I study, is aging and Alzheimer's disease. So there's an area where we don't have a model yet that's really faithful to the human condition, but I think we will have one. Mm-hmm. Infectious disease.
It's huge.
It's huge. AIDS, Zika, the next Zika. There's going to be another Zika that comes across that the monkey's uniquely well suited to model.
Absolutely, and it seems like Zika came out of nowhere.
It did come out of nowhere. I mean, it's been around actually for quite some time, but we don't know exactly how or why it jumped to humans in such a powerful way, in such an infectious way. So I would say that one of the things that people really need to understand is that we are hard at work to use the monkey model to solve devastating diseases in humans. I think another thing that the public should understand is that we take enormous care and great expense to make the monkeys as healthy and content as they can be. Now, they're being used in experiments, but we have a large colony here that is not currently enrolled in experiments. And it's very, very important that they are healthy and happy and kept taken care of. And we put a lot of resources into that. And the third thing that I think the public should understand is the level of commitment of the people that work here. Doesn't matter what you're doing here. If you're working here at the Primate Center, you are committed to improving human health. Everybody here.
Absolutely, and I have seen that firsthand, day in and day out. Yeah. Everyone is very much dedicated to the work that they're doing here.
Yeah. And it's hard work. It's really hard work, and these people, they work hard and they're very skilled. So I'm very proud of everybody that works here.
And what do you see as the future of non-human primate research?
Well, one of the things that's kind of a dream for some of us around here right now is that some of the behavioral tests that we use to test cognition, for example, can now be automated. They are on a computer screen. What we'd like to do is get a system set up so that the monkeys can voluntarily, the monkeys that are, for instance, in one of the corrals, voluntarily go over to a little set-up workstation and do their behavioral testing when they feel like it, and perhaps be rewarded for it. So they would still be in the social setting while their behavior is being tested, and I think that would be really powerful. I also think it's important that we have more liaisons with industry, because if you're going to translate biological findings to clinical innovation, you have to go through a corporate level at some point. We can't take everything we do right to a drug or an intervention, but we can with industry partners. So I want to build that relationship up to whatever degree I can. I already mentioned that some systems are uniquely well developed in the monkey. The visual system is one. I want to build up research arenas in areas like that, where the monkey model is absolutely essential to the human disorder. And the other thing that we've mentioned already that I think is an important area for us to go into is these naturally occurring diseases, where we can look at the genetics, for instance, behind this left ventricular hypertrophy or type 2 diabetes or cataracts, because we can do genetic analysis in our monkey colony just like you would do in humans. So I think those are just a couple of areas. And I would also note that we will continue to work on improving the welfare of the monkeys and the social environment that they live in.
Yeah, you touched upon that a little bit about some of the behavioral studies that are being conducted. I mean, there's a lot of behavioral studies that we do here as well.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just us watching the monkeys.
It's true. And one of the things that makes that possible is our large corrals that provide a fairly natural social environment for the monkeys. So we have people that can study their social interactions, their hierarchies, loneliness. Some monkeys are naturally lonely, others are very social. And then, of course, you try and figure out what it is about, for instance, the genetics of the lonely monkeys versus the social monkeys.
Absolutely.
And that has human applications.
And some of the work that you're doing, too, with aging, that's, you know, as you mentioned before, there are things that happen to a monkey naturally as they age that also happen to us.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, it is. And aging, of course, is maybe one of the biggest problems that we face because so many diseases are related to aging. And so much loss of function comes with aging that's short of a disease. We study cognitive aging, for example, and it's not Alzheimer's disease, but it's very, very bothersome and a major health issue. And the monkey is really incredibly well suited to that because the monkey has a very well-developed prefrontal cortex, as do humans, and that's the area most vulnerable to aging.
That's fascinating. It's interesting that we have identified all of this. Well, John, I think we're wrapping up here. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you feel would be important to say?
I think there is one thing that we haven't touched upon, and that is the importance of using the non-human primate model when it's uniquely powerful. There are things that you can model in the monkey that you really can't model in any other lab animal species that will have a powerful impact on human disease. And I think we all have to keep that in mind and keep in mind that that's an important thing to do. With it comes certain responsibilities, but it's very, very important to use this model in a powerful way.
Absolutely. And that was Dr. John Morrison, the director of the California National Primate Research Center. And I'm your host, Carlos Villatoro, the information officer at CNPRC.